Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Charles Shapiro, the President of the World Affairs Council of Atlanta. Welcome to today's program on Goldman Sachs and 1 million Black women. The program is with Asahi Pompey, who is Global Head of Corporate Engagement and the President of the Goldman Sachs Foundation. This program is brought to you by the UPS Foundation and the members of the World Affairs Council. If you're not a member, please join. I want to welcome 3 of our board members who are on today: Joe Bankoff from Georgia Tech, Jim Reed, CEO of YKK America, and Dr. Jagdish Sheth from the Goizueta Business School at Emory. And we've got 3 former speakers who are in the audience today: Maurice Hobson from Georgia State University, Naima Judge from the Bank of America, and Nadia Theodore, formerly Canadian Consul General in the Southeast, now an executive with Maple Foods in Canada. And I want to give a special welcome to LaCarrie Jackson, Director of Social Impact at the UPS Foundation, and Judy Moore, President of the CDC Foundation. The moderator of today's program is Cecily McLeod, who I think was a founding member of the World Affairs Council since day one, and she's a member of the Council Steering Committee. Cecily is a senior counsel in the Atlanta office of Gordon and Rees LLC, and at the same time is somehow managing to pursue a PhD in history. For audience members, after about 25-30 minutes, Cecily will ask your questions to Asahi. Please use the Q&A function at the bottom of the Zoom screen. If you don't know where it is, click on More. There's a drop-down menu, and one of the things that will drop down is Q&A. Click on that and you can ask your question. Cecily, I'm turning this over to you.
Well, thank you so much, Charles, and thank you everybody for being here. I want to start by introducing you, Asahi, and then getting to our program today. So Asahi, as you heard Charles say, is the Global Head of Corporate Engagement and the President of the Goldman Sachs Foundation. She's a member of the Management Committee, the Global Diversity Committee, and the Sustainable Finance Steering Group there. Prior to assuming her current role, she was the Co-Chief Compliance Officer of Goldman Sachs and Company and the Global Head of Investment Banking Division Compliance. And she also had a responsibility for conduct risk. She joined Goldman Sachs in 2006 and was named the Managing Director in 2010 and then a partner in 2018. Prior to joining the firm, she was an associate attorney at Cleary Gottlieb Steen in Hamilton, where she worked in the New York and Frankfurt offices. And she graduated from Swarthmore College and earned a JD from Columbia University, and was born in Guyana, South America, and attended high school in Tokyo, Japan, and worked as a corporate attorney in Frankfurt, Germany. So if you'll indulge me, I want to do a quick poll, and you don't have to touch any buttons or anything, but if you could, all of you raise your hands and just let me know how many of you are in need of some good news. I will raise my hand twice. This is good news. Asahi, you are good news because I think we have our members and friends here today. They are at all levels of leadership, and I think they can benefit from hearing a little bit about your story and how you've transitioned to get where you are now. And then also, the 1 million Black women initiative is good news. The $10 billion in direct investment is good news. The 100 million in philanthropy support is good news. This is good news. And so let's get to it. Let's get to it. Thank you for being here.
Well, Cecily, I want to thank you. I think you're good news. I love your energy, and I want to thank Charles. I want to thank the council. I want to thank all of the audience for taking the time to join us today. I'm impressed by your PhD pursuit, which sounds fantastic. And how you do it with all the other things that you do. So thanks for having me. And I'm excited to talk to you about 1 million Black women, our $10 billion commitment, and what we're doing there. So I can start there or wherever you want me to start.
Yeah, so I want to start with a little bit about you, and then I want to get to the initiative. I wanted you to share a little bit about, a lot of us may be in a transition or on the other side of a transition, and you've been able to transition so well from different types of corporate environments, from different continents. Can you share just a little bit about how you made the decision to transition in your career?
Yeah, I mean, I have to say that when I started off, I decided at 9 that I wanted to be a lawyer. I didn't quite know what that meant, but I remember that my dad had, and my parents were having a sort of a garden party, and there were lots of people hanging around. The kids were running back and forth as normal, and one of the parents had this idea to like line everyone up, the kids, and ask us what we wanted to be when we grow up. And I remember we were all there, and I have a twin brother, and my brother said he wanted to be a pilot. And he and I had made a pact that we'd be together for the rest of our lives. And so I said, well, if he's a pilot, then I wanted to be what in Guyana you would say is an air hostess, a stewardess, a flight attendant. And I said, I want to be an air hostess. And I remember my dad's face kind of like, after my brother said pilot, he was like, yes, it's really good. And my air hostess like, so the next morning at breakfast, he said to me, he's like, you're top of your class, you're doing really well in school. I want you to think about it and something else that you'd want to do besides, being an air hostess, which is terrific, but maybe there's something else that you'd want to do as well. So I went off and I thought about it, thought he probably would never ask again. And lo and behold, if you know my dad, he's 85, living in Miami. He came back to it and he said, have you given some thought to what you want to be? And I said, I want to be a lawyer. And his face just lit up. He's like, yes, that would be really good. And so from then on, I set a course and I pursued a career in law, not knowing what it would entail. I would end up working at Cleary Gottlieb, which was phenomenal, and really understanding what Wall Street law meant, working on IPOs, mergers, derivative transactions, traveling around the world. It was a phenomenal experience, grueling, to be frank, but also I learned a lot. I felt like I was growing in so many ways. And then I transitioned over to working in-house, first working at a couple of corporations, and then I came in-house at Goldman Sachs, where I met our mutual friend, Natalie Faustin-Lubin, who is fantastic in any event. And so really loved my career in compliance. I liked all of my engagement with bankers, but over time I thought, would I want to pivot my career in another direction? And frankly, there was so much going on at the time that I actively never really worked on it. And come fast forward to 2018, and as it so happened, the individuals that I'd been working with closely became the CEO, the president, and the CFO of Goldman Sachs when leadership changed. Okay. And I got a phone call saying, we loved working with you over the last 15 years, and we've got this new opportunity we'd like you to pursue. And I said, sure, that sounds fantastic. And it was very interesting because sort of similar to deciding to be a lawyer, you learn once you're doing it, what it really entails. And it turns out that working with the foundation in this sort of very purpose, mission-driven work is so aligned. It's almost sort of like my life's journey was leading me here.
I love it. I love it. So you were ready to meet that new opportunity.
Yes, exactly right. And that's what they say, like luck is, right? Opportunity meets experience, and you were ready to meet the opportunity. Exactly, Cecily. I feel like I was ready to meet the opportunity.
And so now you are the president of the foundation, of Goldman Sachs Foundation. And under kind of your umbrella is this 1 Million Black Women Initiative. For those of us who don't know yet, can you please just share briefly with us just generally what that is, and we'll get into the details.
In the shortest way possible, think about it as a $10 billion investment, and that's billion with a B, the largest investment ever specifically focused on Black women in this country, to impact the lives of at least 1 million Black women by the year 2030. 10 billion, 1 million Black women by the year 2030. And if that wasn't enough, on top of that, 100 million in philanthropic capital as well. And there are various ways in which we could have structured the investment, right? You could imagine people can say, well, how can we most help Black women? Well, education. So we should focus our investment on education. And other people say, well, if you look across what's happened, during the pandemic, it's really healthcare. Look at the pandemic within the pandemic in terms of communities of color and Black people in particular being adversely impacted. And so maybe healthcare is the place where you should go. And another person could say, well, you're an investment bank, right? You should do something that's closely aligned where you are differentiated and having an impact in the world. Maybe access to capital is where you should do it. Yeah. And ultimately, Cecily, what we decided was we wanted to walk along the arc of a Black woman's life.
And what do you mean by that?
Yeah, we wanted to start with her as a little girl, right? Did her mother get proper maternal health when she was in the womb? We live in the richest country in the world, and yet Black babies are dying at alarming rates. Black women have the worst maternal fetal health outcomes in this country, right? And yet we have the best healthcare in the world. So starting with her mother, then as you continue along the arc of her life, as a little girl, did she have a chance to go to a preschool where she could learn to read by the age of 6 or 7, like other children? And then you follow her further along. Did she have a chance to get an education and go to college where she would be able to get a broader array of opportunities? And now she's working. Is she earning as much as her white peer that's sitting next to her in the same job that she's doing? So following along the arc of her life, which is the arc of anyone's life, and really making investments at pivotal moments along the arc of that life.
That is fascinating. And so it sounds like I heard some research in there, there's a way that you figured all of this out, how you looked and figured out where that arc goes, where are those points in the arc of a Black woman's life. And I believe that some of it you call Black womenomics. There was a report that I read that Goldman Sachs procured or made. How does that factor into the 1 Million Black Women Initiative? Did that inform the initiative in terms of where you would invest?
Yes, exactly right. So Black Womenomics, you're 100% right. It's a report. If you haven't seen it, take the time, go to the website, look at this report. It's one of the most groundbreaking reports that we've ever published. It was published about a month ago. Fast forward a little bit, because I always think it's important to put things in context. A partner of the firm, Kathy Matsui, phenomenal partner based in our Tokyo office, published a report, Womenomics. And it really talked about the place of women and their impact on society more generally, and it took sort of Japan as a case study. Fast forward now to 2021, we've published Black Womenomics. And basically it looks at what's the data, because Goldman Sachs is very data-driven, and I'm sure a lot of your audience are at organizations that are extremely data-driven as well, so you can all relate. And so we really wanted to look at the numbers and see what the numbers were telling us. And Cecily, they were telling us a couple of things. Number one is, remember the number 90%.
90%, got it.
90%. There's a 90% wealth gap between a Black woman in this country and a white male. Now, if that weren't enough, we'll say, like, what does that mean, Asahi, right? 90% wealth gap. Well, I want to put it in numbers, right? The median net worth of a Black woman is $7,000. Of a white male, it's $92,000, right? And so when you think about what the lives of those two individuals, the one living in the same America with 7,000 and the one with the 92,000. And then you take it beyond those two individuals and you say, well, what about the child that's living in that home, right? What about the sister, the brother, that family network? Because we're only one individual, but off of each of us, right? There's some, person that's in the house with us now. If you're working at home or just left or is coming back, we're a mesh of connections to other individuals. And so as we think about that 90% wealth gap, one, it's good to contextualize in terms of what does that mean, dollars and cents, and two, really understand the blast radius impact of that number on a whole community of people. And so we really asked the question, what about if we could be a force to help close that 90% wealth gap between a Black woman and a white man in this country. And what would that look like to that young girl growing up, to that young woman trying to get a scholarship to go to school, to the person starting out her career, to the older woman, at 70 who wants to have a nest egg to leave for her family, and really making investments along there. But it was very data driven by those numbers.
I see. And those numbers are so important. When you said 7,000 versus 92,000 and that large of a gap. So how then, what part of your team gets to decide, or how do you decide how to allocate that $10 billion, how to deploy that $10 billion along the arc of a Black woman's life? Who decides that? How do you do that?
Exactly. Well, the good part is we've got a whole bunch of really amazing people working on it, much smarter brains than mine. And so your question is a great one because it goes through sort of the mechanics of how this really works. And so I'll say three parts in particular. One is we wanted to start with a listening tour. We believe that those closest to the problem are often closest to the solution, but they're not asked, right? For a long time, people have been telling, communities of color, Black communities, here's what you need to do. You need to do X, Y, and Z. That's what it is. And so we wanted to say, this is a humble Goldman Sachs. This is a listening Goldman Sachs. This is a learning Goldman Sachs. Yes, we've done the research. Yes, we have some ideas, but we want to really go into communities, into Atlanta, into Chester, into Detroit, into Chicago, into New York City, and say, give us a sense of where you think we can have the most impact at scale. And so we've done a number of listening tours already. The last one I did was last Tuesday night. It was over 2,500 people were a part of the listening tour.
I was there.
Well, I'm going to pause now because you have to tell me your thoughts, Cecily.
No, I thought it was great because it involved, I saw a lot of different people. The Divine Nine were there. So we had people from Alpha Kappa Alpha, Sorority Incorporated. And so they gave their constituents and members voices, right? And so they were contributing and they were kind of telling you about what their communities need and what their communities were facing. And so, but they weren't alone. They were talking together as a group, as partners. And so I thought it was great.
Okay, you're better talking about this than I am because you've seen it. So I love it. I absolutely love it. And that's what we were trying to do, right? We were trying to do exactly that, which is bring voices together and us be the ones that are listening and have them also talk to each other as well. And so we have another one coming up. And so so first it was start with a listening tour. Mm-hmm. Two is have this model be built with Black women, by Black women, for Black women. Of course, lots of others will be a part of it, but really center the leadership and the voice around Black women impacting their own outcomes in the world, right? And so that was another key component of it. The third component is really segmenting the areas of impact. And I'm just gonna look down at my sheet because I wanna make sure that I get all of the impact areas exactly right for all of your audience. So one is healthcare, student loans, broadband. Black women are third more likely to live in a household without broadband, going back to the Black Womenomics report. Think about that, Cecily, and you and I bonded over being, mothers of boys. But think about that in terms of the last year of kids at home with school, and there's no broadband.
We couldn't have survived it in terms of the school piece of it. Yeah,
it would have been the lost year. And in fact, it has been the year of the lost year of education for any number of kids across the country. And so broadband is another one. Small businesses, we know that as you think about that wealth gap, right? And I have to say, I love this job because I feel like I'm growing and learning all the time. And so when I thought about the racial wealth gap, I had my own notions of, okay, here's what needs to be done to close the racial wealth gap. Two things for your audience. Mm-hmm. One is, as we drilled into the data around where are the real stress points in terms of the racial wealth gap? One is jobs, right? Not a surprise, right? Either people don't have jobs. They have a job, but the job is a part-time job.
Yes.
They have a job, But it's a full-time job, but it doesn't really offer sick days or benefits or 401k or whatever else. They have a job. It does offer sick days. It does offer benefits. It has 401k. But hey, guess what? They don't know it, but they're actually making less than their peers who work around them because of systemic racism, implicit bias, any number of other issues, right? And so all of a sudden, you put that cocktail together, right? And so from the person who has no job to the person who's successful and has a job, but still making whatever 10, 15, 20% less, and you compound that over time, and you've still got a problem across that spectrum. And so as we looked at it, this issue around income was one of the main areas. And so I'll give you a specific example of an investment that I think will ground all of this.
Yes.
Care Academy is a company that we made an investment in. Think pandemic, individuals who need care in their homes, home health aides. Black women are disproportionately in this field of home health aides.
Yes.
Now, average home health aide makes anywhere from $15, $20, $25 an hour job, right? Now, as you think about that, we invested in Care Academy. She took these women who were going into homes, taking care of our loved ones, and upskill them with certificates, training. All of a sudden, that individual is now able to get a $40,000 job, going from $12 an hour to a $40,000 an hour job. And at scale, that's now hundreds of Black women that are now making more in their lives, being able to contribute more, being able to help their family more. That's the kind of investment thesis where if we can turbocharge organizations like Care Academy, who are then helping groups of Black women who then make more money, that's the kind of thing that we're thinking about. And that's one of the investments in the healthcare space that I think kind of illuminates it for your audience.
And I love that because it reminds me a little bit about 10 or 15 years ago, a lot of people were talking a lot about microfinance, right? And the idea behind that was, you get women in a developing country and you give the women microloans or what have you, and then that will filter to other people in the community and grow the community through ripple effects. And so some of this sounds a little bit like kind of the rhetoric or the theory or strategy behind microfinance to me a little bit.
Yeah, because because what's that intending to do is with a single investment that you then are able to impact even more individuals.
That's right. I heard you talk about some partnerships, and I know you're partnering with some organizations in the listening tour, but can you talk to me in terms of this 10 billion in direct investment, how you're utilizing partnerships with that as well?
Yeah, I mean, as people say, if you want to go, fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go with others. And so partnerships are a key part. We can't do this alone. We don't have all the answers, and we're smarter and better with partnerships. So we're partnering with Morehouse Medical Center, which is just phenomenal. And we're just really thrilled to be able to have that partnership. We're also partnering with the sororities that you mentioned, who have been incredible supporters and really guides to us throughout this process. We have an advisory council that has the likes of, Darren Walker from the Ford Foundation, Valerie Jarrett, Dr. Montgomery Rice. I mean, just phenomenal people, and it's all on our website. But the advisory council, in addition to the organizations that we're partnering with, and by the way, there are going to be more. You may be listening to this and you may say, look, I've got a phenomenal organization that I think should be a part of this. Go to the website. We want to know. We read every single one of them, because what can sometimes happen is sort of the organizations that are bigger or more savvy or have more sort of PR financial scale may get more attention initially, but there may be other smaller organizations that are having tremendous impact in communities that may not have that profile. And we want to find and shed light on those organizations as well. And so to the extent that you know about organizations like that, and a number of them have come in, we're going through and diligencing every single one.
That's great. And I want to ask you a couple more questions before I get into the Q&A. So if you have questions, put them in the Q&A, and I promise in a few moments I'm going to get to you. I will be quiet, or I will speak for you and read your questions. I wanted to ask a question about the 100 million in philanthropic support. What's the difference between that utilization and then the deployment of the 10 billion in direct investment? How will you use that 100 million?
Yeah, so the 100 million is grants, right? So not investment money, grants that we're giving to organizations. And I think we're still building it, but to share with this audience, I think part of the investment will be larger scale investments in whether it's medical centers or things like that. And then the other group, I really want to set aside to make grants to smaller organizations and helping those catapult those organizations to grow as well. And so that'll be across the pillars as described, which would be education, healthcare, access to capital, workforce, and so organizations like that.
I see. Okay, so we get down the line, and I know, Goldman Sachs likes data and transparency and measurement. How, as this grows and develops, how are you going to measure success? How are you going to measure the return on investment in all of this down the line?
It's funny because as we were building it, this was the question we kept asking all along. Now, the good news is we have two programs that we've been running, 10,000 small businesses and 10,000 women. Both programs are over a decade long. They fall within my remit as president of the foundation. And we've really built a fantastic template where we publish annual reports. And so there'll be a report published, the world can see. I want to be held accountable, and I'm going to hold myself accountable, and I want you to hold us accountable to make sure that we're doing it. And so there'll be a report that's published in terms of what the impact is. Two, we want to track over time. So for 10,000 small businesses, we have entrepreneurs go through the program, and we look at them at entry. We look at them 6 months out, 12 months out, 18 months out, 24, and the like. And so there is longitudinal data across the board. And we're going to do something very similar here, where we're not just making a spot investment and then move on to the other one, but we want to look at, well, it's now been 4 months, what's going on? How many people have been impacted? In what way? Does that need to be expanded? Does it need to be re-upped? And really interrogate it, as a good lawyer, Cecily, you and I, knowing all about sort of cracking it open, looking at it. And that's one of the things that Goldman Sachs does extraordinarily well. It can be painful sometimes, but extraordinarily well.
Asking all the questions.
All the questions, every angle, yes.
Every angle. Well, good. I love that, the tracking, especially, and it's not just 6 months. It's going to be 12 months, 18 months, and so forth, just to make sure it's working and how it can work better if it needs to. So I love hearing about that. And I want to hear, I heard a year before I get to the Q&As, 2030. So I want you to kind of put your future glasses on and think about, here we are in 2030. What do you think the impact of the 1 Million Black Women Initiative looks like in 2030?
Oh my God. This question gives me the chills. I have to tell you, it does.
Yeah.
It gives me the chills because for so many of us, this is personal.
Mm-hmm.
Right? As much as you and I are in the room and in these rooms, we know that so many amazing, talented Black women are not in the rooms that we're in.
No.
And they had, their lives took different paths and there are different opportunities that they weren't afforded. And so my wish for this is very often, we're held up as the exception, Cecily did this and she's doing that. And if you talk to any successful Black woman, they'll all tell you the same thing. We don't want to be the exception.
Mm-mm.
We don't.
No.
We want this successful Blackness, Black womanhood, Black girl magic to be the norm. And bringing up, imagine an America where all of our wonderful children are really to live and be able to grow to their fullest potential. That's just extraordinary,
and
right?
The freedom that comes with that.
The freedom that comes with that, where we would be as a society. And so in Black Womenomics, we talk about, GDP and, putting Black women at the center and the work, how would we be able to create up to 750 billion of increased GDP? I mean, it's incredible, not just on impacting Black women, but the American economy, our country as a whole. And so this is why wherever you sit, why you should care about this initiative. It relates to our country and our full potential of our country more generally. So when I think about 2030, I go back to not being the exception and having so many superstars like you and Natalie and others that are inspiring even more girls at 9 when they think about what they want to be.
I love that. And I think, to have that goal and to be kind of looking at the next millionaires or the next, trailblazers and presidents and things like that, that could be born from an initiative like this. And so I love it. And it gives me goosebumps as well. I was so excited to talk to you about it. And so I know our members and our friends have questions too, and I'm going to start on them. Let's see. Shirley Smith has a question. She says, I like the idea of listening to the community. How do we become a part of the listening tour in the Sacramento area?
Hi, Shirley. First of all, thank you for your question. So you can be part of the listening tour, wherever you are, Sacramento or elsewhere. So if you go onto the website, and we've made it very clear, it's like on the front page, so you don't have to search for it anywhere. Click on that Million Black Women. And then there's a form that you complete. You just give us your information there. And the next listening tour, you will be invited to participate.
Great. And so I'm going to group a couple of questions. Juliana, Shirley again, and Brigitte, they have questions about specific partnerships. So one runs a nonprofit in Atlanta. One is connected to the Black women veteran community. They want to know how do they connect to the initiative? How do they engage with the initiative? Yeah.
First of all, Black women vets, amazing. Thank you for your service. Two of my twin brother didn't end up becoming a pilot, and he did something even better. He served our country in Afghanistan, and my younger brother as well. He was in the Army and worked at Walter Reed for a number of years. In any event, so I just think Black women vets, you've got a special place in my heart. And so again, we try to make it as simple as humanly possible, which is there's one front door, and our website, we were trying to think of, what's the best front door? Our website is the front door. So you just go through to the website, go through that front door, and you just write exactly what you just said. I have a phenomenal organization, Black Women Vets. I work with girls in education or whatever the case may be. You tell us, and there is a human being, actually several, whose job it is to read every single one of those and say, invite to listening tour. Asahi, you follow up. Dina, you follow up. And so we've got it working in that way.
That's great. That's great. I had a couple questions like that. I did have a question from Robin. I love the idea of empowering, investing in Black women. Do you also focus on a top-down strategy, educating employers and investors about the power of paying living wages, benefits? What can we do to make sure that working Black women do get a decent wage that will allow them and their children to thrive?
Tell me the name of the person who asked the question.
Robin.
Okay, yeah. Robin. That is a question near and dear to my heart. And I'll tell you a little quick story as I go along the way. I was working in an organization, and I thought I was doing really well, and I got a promotion. And I was like, "Oh, this is really great." And then I got a few people reporting to me as part of the promotion. And then it became time to figure out the compensation for the people on my team. And my boss said, "Yeah, you can figure out the compensation for these 3 people, but not this one person. I'll take care of that." And I was like, that's kind of weird. I don't quite know why you'd want to do that, but okay. And I agreed, but then it kept bothering me. So I went back to her. And then ultimately, what I would find out is the reason that I couldn't do the compensation for that person is that they were making significantly more than I was making. And my boss at the time was just a little bit concerned about, telling me that and what to do and all of that around it. And I said, just be candid and just say, this person was making more money than you, and we're going to rectified over time. So this whole issue around top down and corporations, companies really attacking this is absolutely, absolutely critical, because it goes back to that 90% wealth gap, right? Even the ones that are the most successful are still in very many cases making less, right? And so absolutely critical. At the moment, and I'm going to go back to the team on the back of this, that's not a sort of central focus of the work that we're doing right now with 1 million Black women. It's more sort of in communities with healthcare, in communities with education, investments in small business, Black women entrepreneurs. We could think about doing more on that employer piece, but it hasn't right now been a key area of focus.
Thank you, Asahi. I have a couple of questions here about entrepreneurs and angel funds. How is Goldman Sachs helping small entrepreneurs with angel funding? And so that is a little bit related, but kind of how can entrepreneurs participate? Not just kind of small businesses, but more so startups rather. So new businesses that are kind of for something that's groundbreaking that hasn't been done before versus kind of a service-oriented small business.
Yeah, so we've got our lane specifically, and you've said it, Cecily, has been traditionally small businesses. Like, you have a business, you're not a complete startup because
Right.
You have a small business, and we want to help you grow that business. And that's been our 10,000 Small Businesses program. And through that program, we've already served almost 1,000 Black women business owners as part of that program. We haven't as much shifted towards doing startups altogether, right? Where it's like a piece of paper and I'm figuring out my business. I don't anticipate at the moment that's going to be something we're pivoting towards, because as we think about, as you build something, and put yourself in our shoes for a sec, you've got to figure out where you can best impact, A, and 2, you're going to have to figure out that you can't be all things to all people, right? And so the one thing I am is clear and transparent. So if we're doing X, I'm going to tell you we're doing X. And if we're not doing Y, I'm going to tell you we're not really doing Y. At the moment, startups, piece of paper startups, have not been an area of focus. It could be, this is a 10-year investment, right? So it could be over time as we morph, but as we're kicking off now, it's more been sort of these larger scale, big, chunkier investments. And through our 10,000 Small Businesses program, people who have an up and running business that they'd like to grow, we want more Black women as part of that pipeline. So if you know someone, and this is like your hair salon, the barber shop, the bookstore, like real small business, that's 10,000 Small Businesses. We're recruiting and we're getting more people in that. Those have been sort of the 2 established channels.
And it reminds me of Janice Bryant, who I don't know if everybody's familiar, but she was the first African American woman to build a $1 billion small business. And she had an ongoing concern. She had a staffing business, and she was working really hard. And then the government created these kind of new set-asides for minorities and women. And she met that opportunity and transitioned that into a $1 billion staffing company. And so, we have the next Janice Bryant Howard, I feel like, in this community. And I love that lane is clear, at least for right now, of small businesses. I think that makes sense. I had a question from Mark Elgard about risk and challenges in the initiative. What have you come across that's been a challenge and a risk that you've met or avoided in making the initiative?
Yeah, this is an important area. And I frankly have to say, Mark, it's not a question I get that often, but it's something that keeps us up at night. So I'm glad that you're like tapping into my psyche here in terms of what we talk about internally. One, look, you want to make sure that it's a lot of money, right? And you want to make sure that the structure and the decision-making about how those funds are allocated is the right structure and decision-making around it. We've got robust committees. The firm has been doing this for a long time in terms of making capital investments, but that's always something that you think about and you interrogate over and over again, A. 2 is, there are 23 million Black women in America. You'll have to tell me the exact number. We're not going to be able to help everyone in every organization, And so, that keeps me up at night, though. On the one hand, someone's probably like, my friends are like, it shouldn't. But when you think about 1 million Black women, you also think about all the other people that you're not helping, and you don't want to sort of disappoint anyone, right? You want to make sure that we're delivering on every score, because we take it personally. Like, I leave a piece of myself at Goldman Sachs, and the work that I do for the last 15 years. And so, so I think that sense of ownership and responsibility and commitment that's deep around this work and this community and these people and doing it well is something that I bear and I own. And so I think about that in terms of risk as well. And I think the other risk is that we miss an opportunity, that something's fantastic, and years later we're like, oh my God, Cecily's idea on X, we should have done that one. That was the one. Like, you somehow missed something that you shouldn't. But and the risk list goes on, Mark.
No, it's always, did I miss something that I have some solidarity with you there. Let's get to a question about Ariel Shaw. And I think you've answered this, but she's asked it a different way. How do we ensure other organizations that should be at the table are included?
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah.
Yeah, I think I'm going to rely on you and the community to bring those organizations to us, right? And in each of the listening tours, we're saying that as well, because you're right. I remember I was, in Brooklyn, I was part of this like community organization, and they were doing dance at the time, and I loved dance at the time, and
this was so high school, right? You grew up in Brooklyn. Yeah,
I grew up in Brooklyn.
Yeah,
and it was like so shoestring. I can't even describe it to you, but it was like aunts and uncles and grandmas at the church who like baked pies and other things so that we could get our little outfits, and then once like we could get like 3 tap shoes, and there were only 3 you could get. And we're like, I hope I get the tap shoe, because that's what you could get. But the sacrifice, the rooms we're in, there's a whole group of people who pushed for us to be in those rooms through educating us, helping us. They were pushing for us to be in rooms they know they would never be in, and to go to places that they would never see. But the fact that we would be able to get there was worth their investment in the bake sale and all the other things. And so I love this question, because it's one of the things I want to make sure that these smaller organizations are coming to our attention, and that we're able to really sort of shine a light and be helpful, frankly, to smaller organizations too.
That's great. And I wanted to kind of talk about now larger organizations. An anonymous attendee asked, do you partner with any organizations that are predominantly white? Do you partner with any universities? I know you mentioned Morehouse, but if you could answer that one as well.
We're building more partnerships. At the moment, the partners have been organizations like Morehouse. And so we're not, in terms of impact, we obviously would consider broadly different organizations a partnership, because ultimately it's about the impact that we want to create. And we are proponents of organizations that are led by people of color, because as we know, those organizations tend to get less funding. And so they tend to need even greater assistance. But to the person's question, if there are particular organizations that you think would have the kind of impact on the lives of Black women, then by all means, bring those to our attention as well. And I think it'd definitely be something that we'd want to work through. Absolutely. Yeah.
And one, Jenny Ward Robinson, Dr. Jenny Ward Robinson has a question about STEM. And she said, can we begin, or will a part of the initiative be to begin to nurture and grow Black girls to become successful by supporting STEM related education? And recently, in the last couple of years, we've heard more about STEM education and in Black women in fintech communities. Is that a part of the initiative yet, or at all?
Yes, yes, and yes. Okay. I couldn't agree with your question more. If you think about where the world is going, like our girls have got to be in STEM. And so last year, I pioneered a huge grant that we gave to Black Girls Code. And we've been working with them. I'm actually supposed to do a Talks at GS with Kimberly Bryant soon. And so absolutely, that is a key area of focus that you've put your finger on. And actually, our head of technology has been very involved in that part too internally. So yes.
Wonderful. And I will leave it there. We're at 12:43, so we want to be, good stewards of our time. Asahi, it has been wonderful. Thank you for this good news. And I will turn it over to you, Charles.
Thanks, Cecily. You're a great moderator. Asahi, this has just been tremendous. I am fascinated. We've got great questions from the audience. And I love the idea of following Black women along the arc of life. I think that's such a brilliant idea. That's great. And I've got some suggestions for some organizations you could support, and I'll be contacting you.
Oh, I love it, Charles. That would be awesome.
Cool. That's great. I got to do a little advertising here for myself. So we've got some upcoming programs I want to tell you about. On Wednesday of next week, April 28th, we have a members forum on U.S.-Mexico, the real border crisis with Brenda Lopez, immigration attorney and former member of the Georgia House of Representatives. This is for members only. If you're not, join the World Affairs Council. On May 4th, we have Dee Perez from Senior Vice President and Chief Global Communication, Sustainability, and Strategic Partnerships Officer at the Coca-Cola Company. This is going to sound familiar. What we're going to be talking about is Coca-Cola's investment in female entrepreneurs around the world. They call it their 5x20 program. They wanted to empower 5 million women by 2020. They surpassed the goal and have reached 6 million women, and now they're continuing on. So it sounds like maybe they should be in touch with Goldman Sachs as well. And for audience members, I've got 3 requests for you. Please join the World Affairs Council as an individual member or as a corporate member. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. That way you'll get notified whenever we post videos, and we will post the video of today's program. It'll be up in about an hour, so you can watch this, share it with your friends. And number 3, please invite your friends to join our programs. Let them know about it. This is great today, and we've got other great programs coming up, and I want y'all all to share it with your friends. I want to thank our producer, Valerie Lopez DeFrank, Fernando Lucchini Ishihara, the Council's Executive Director, and I want to welcome back Hina Rennie, who's working with the Council part-time after adding 2 beautiful children to her family. So Asahi, thank you so much for spending so much time with us. This has just been great. We will send you the video. We'll send you the questions, the asked and the unasked questions. And I think a lot of people are going to be in touch with you. This has been tremendous. Cecily, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Cecily's taking